Hi, I'm Othor Freyson of the Wild Team, the Wolfpack. Today, we're going to do episode 4 of Pagan Leadership, and we're going to be playing politics today. So, grab yourself something to warm and something nice and toasty to drink, and let's get into it. So, we are finally outside. It's not negative 40 anymore, it's only negative 8. So, this is practically grilling weather. Anyways, so what do I mean when we're talking about politics? I'm going to give you a heads up right now. We're not talking about who you voted for president, mayor, congressman, senator, whatever that may be, right? I'm talking about your coven, your kindred, your group, the politics that are beholden in that. What is your politics? And I'm not meaning in the political spectrum of government. I'm talking about how does your kindred, your group conduct things? What are the bylaws? What are the reasonings behind the bylaws? How are those enforced? Who gets elected into the leadership positions that you have? How do you recognize leadership? Just some little things like that. And that's just kind of starting with your inner kindred. How about the politics of your outside of your kindred, your outer guard, not your inner guard, but the outer guard, like your outer circle? How does your group interact with other groups? Does it interact with other groups? Should it? Is there other groups to interact with? Each group's going to have some form of reasoning why groups do or do not interact with certain groups or any groups at all. And that's going to be there's going to be reasonings for that. So, if someone's been doing this for a few years now, there's groups that we do and do not interact with, and we have our reasons for that. And those are the politics that we have. Some of the politics being, who do you elect? Why do you elect? Some of the titles your group holds. How does it interact and work with other groups outside of your kindred? That's just to name a couple. Now, personally, when it comes to the politics thing, I know some groups are heavily political and some are not. Mine is not. And the reason for it is I like to see people for who they are, not their politics. And there's going to be disagreements on that. By all means, have them. But it's just the way that we do it. But understand, though, too, that, there are some groups that are heavily into that. Do you want to be that kind of group that is extremely heavy into politics? How do you want your group to do things? And how does it want to conduct things? But I think I beat the dead horse on that one. But speaking of other groups, do you worry what other groups are doing? Does that actually affect your group? There's a nice little phrase that's been said in the heathen community, in Ace True as a whole, and it's not my hall, not my call. A lot of people know it's not my pig, not my farm, not my monkey, not my circus. It's got a few names. But are you really going to worry about what a kindred does in Florida when you live in Nebraska? Or are you going to worry about what someone does in Southern California when you live in Minnesota, Alaska, Texas, and so on and so forth, right? All the decisions that you make, or your kindred does make, should affect your kindred mainly, right? Because, your kindred comes first. Your community comes first for a community that is not yours. And that's how it should be. But with that being said, if other calls that have been made in other kindreds does affect your kindred, let's say your neighboring kindred does something that your kindred does not really approve of. Does it really affect your kindred at all? And if it does, what do you do? Do you keep the peace or do you declare war? No, I'm not saying we're going to have some old school beef or whatever, or we draw weapons or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. It's, if this is a group that you formerly worked with, do you cut all ties? Or is this something not really that serious and it's not really going to war over? Or is it? Those are some of the things you kind of have to think about. Ethics, Ethics could be the biggest determining factor of how that works and how that operates. So what is your kindred's ethics? What is your coven ethics? That's something to kind of think about. Now, with that being said, go into the discussion of ethics. If you're a pagan leader or a leadership position long enough of any degree, facet, or another, you're going to have a power test. When you're a leader, you naturally have authority. Now, to what degree that authority is, it's going to vary depending on what your title, your position, or even what your role as a leader is. We talked about staying in your lane in the first episode, or one of the earlier episodes, but with that being said, you could be tested in your ability to use your power. Because if you lead a kindred, coven, whatever you give the name is, you naturally have some form of authority. But how you use that authority, if it's given to you, really depends on how your power test goes. Do you seldomly use it and to the point where you don't make decisions at all? Or do you hold it like an iron fist and overreach? Where's the balance? Where's the balance in your decision making? Who has the right in your kindred group to make those said decisions? How does that power get divided if there's more than one leader? Now, granted, I say this kind of vaguely because there's multiple ways pagans are leaders in different facets, covens, kindreds, and each group does different things. But understand that you are going to be tested, and you're going to be tested more than once. It's not a one and done kind of deal. Now, if it's just you and your bro and you're just doing heathen shit with your heathen friends, you're probably not going to get tested. But if your kindred grows to the point where it starts having an outreach on nearby communities, or you start having influence over people who follow your group, there's going to be a power test. Keep that in mind. But y'all can kind of stir and sit on that one for a bit. So the question is, do you think you'll pass your power test? Until next time.